During this presentation, which will be a short introductory presentation, I will briefly explain what Eurostat has been trying to do over the past few years when it comes to linked open data, and especially when it comes to trying and stimulate some collaboration within the statistical community about the use of linked open data. Actually, as you will see in the presentation from Christine, in the past 2 to 3 years, Eurostat has started to invest more in linked open data. We have done quite a bit of work on exposing our statistical classifications as linked open data, and Christine will talk more in detail about that in her presentation. And we're also doing increasingly work to try and expose also our data as linked open data. And we believe that the possibility of linking data, of publishing data as linked open data, opens a lot of opportunities for us as statistical organizations to better respect the FAIR principles for the publication of data. FAIR stands for findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. It is a set of widely accepted principles for how data, scientific data, and statistical data should be published for it to really play its role as an open and accessible public good. And we really believe that linked open data can bring several benefits in achieving and complying with the FAIR principles. But what we also noticed in our own efforts to publish data and metadata as linked open data is that in the word linked open data, there is in the expression linked open data, there is the word linked. And actually, the benefits of publishing as linked open data can be maximized when you have some sort of a network effect, where you're not the only organization that is publishing data as linked open data, but when there are other organizations that are doing it as well, and when the data that you're publishing is being linked to other relevant data from other organizations. So in order to stimulate a bit this discussion and try to stimulate this network effect, at least at the level of the European statistical system in which Eurostat, as the statistical office of the European Union, operates, we have launched earlier this year a European community of practice on linked open data. And we have created it as a forum for sharing experiences and best practices on the use of linked open data in the statistical world for the publication of statistical data and structural metadata. And this community of practice so far is composed of 12 statistical offices and 1 international organizations. I'm actually very happy that even though most of the statistical offices that are participating are from Europe and from the European Union, we have also participants from outside the European Union. So, for example, Statistics Canada has been very active, and this also helps us to have a perspective that goes beyond Europe, and it's quite interesting. So far this year, we have organized 4 workshops, and we have subdivided the work into 4 task teams that are working on different aspects of the publication of data and metadata as linked open data. I will talk briefly about now about what each of these task teams are doing. So, without going too much into detail, out of the 4 task teams, 3 of them are focused on trying to issue guidelines and recommendations on how data, statistical data and metadata can be interlinked between different publishers, different data providers, to improve the compliance to FAIR principles. And out of the 4 levels of FAIR. So once again, findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. There is a higher focus on findability and interoperability, so on the F and on the I. These are the this is what the 3 of the 4 task teams are trying to do. And just to give you a picture of the kind of discussions that we're having, you can see a bit this diagram, which tries to represent how different data sets from, for example, the census domain are being published from different countries, and the different kind of links that you could create between data sets published by different countries. So, for example, you can have links between data sets based on certain shared properties. So, for example, you can say that different data sets from different countries belong to the same statistical domain or share the same legal basis. You can also link data sets to their structural metadata. So you can say that certain data sets share certain concepts or are using certain codes for those concepts, which could be shared or maybe are not shared. And you can also create then links between the different classifications or breakdowns used by individual data providers to better show how the data published by 2 different data providers are linked, how they can be integrated into something that is coherent. So these are the different kinds of links that you could build between your data and your structural metadata, and on which 3 of the 4 task teams operating under our community of practice are working on. So their main objective is trying to give some guidelines, give some recommendations, give some ideas about how to make these links, and exploring a bit the benefits as well of making these links. We then have 1 testing. So 3 out of the 4 test teams are working on these kind of links. And we have then 1 test team that is doing something a bit different, a bit more technical, which is trying to work on a common REST API for querying statistical classifications. The idea here is not so much to improve the way we link our data and metadata, but to have some sort of a standard API that people could use to query statistical classifications. And this API is supposed to bring 2 advantages. The first one would be to provide a simpler interface to query information about statistical classifications than would be available with other possible query mechanisms such as Sparkle. And actually, Christine in her presentation will talk a bit more about that. But also creating a common REST API also allows, or would allow potentially, for a level of alignment between different providers of statistical classifications that does not necessarily require an alignment at a deeper alignment at the technical level, or would not require everyone to publish classification as linked open data. So behind the idea of the first 3 task teams is that these are links that you can create once you are publishing your data or structural metadata as linked open data, basically. Which is a fairly high bar to be able to clear, to be able to make use of these best practices and these links. Whereas the testing that's working on the REST API doesn't make any such assumptions. Basically, the REST API, the standard interface, could be used by anyone, regardless of whether they are publishing classifications as linked open data yet or not. So we have been working with this within this community of practice for 6 months now, more or less, a bit more actually. I think we must have started in April. So yeah, it's about 8 months. We're trying still to define exactly the expected deliverables for each of the test teams, and we're trying to look for a pilot domain where we could try to test out some of the ideas about linking that the different task teams are generating. We expect to have some first results in 2024 about this. But as part of our efforts in this community of practice, we wanted to bring a higher level of attention and awareness of not necessarily only our work specifically in Eurostat and in the European statistical system about linked open data, but more in general about the possibilities that linked open data can give in the publication of statistical data. And this is why we wanted to launch this this webinar today, to spread a bit the word about the advantages of this approach. In case you have any questions about the work of the community of practice, or in case you even would like to join the community of practice, you can contact us at this functional email address, and we'll make sure to answer your questions and to give you more details, especially if you would like to join the work that I outlined in the preceding slides. That's about it for me as an introduction. I hope that you understand a bit better why we wanted to launch this meeting and what is the catalyst, let's say, for us to try and spread the word regarding the use of linked open data to publish statistical data and metadata. And with this, my presentation ends,